Hello, good people. Welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Signed, sealed, remembered, constructing the dream of the Circle G. Hi, Gun. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate seeing you here. And if you've been with us for previous episodes, you know that we've been looking at the Circle G. This is our 21st episode. That's 21 hours that we've spent looking at different information about the Circle G. And we've heard a lot of stories. We're trying to put them together in the right order so that we know what happened when. And right now, we're looking deeply into February and March of 1967. This is the period when Elvis has just bought the ranch. He's getting it into the shape that he wants it. He's building the dream. And then he's got to go off to make Clam Bake, the next movie. Hi, Marion. Thank you so much for coming. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for coming and appreciate seeing you both here. And to start out today, we're going to look at some words that were written by Sid Tepper for the song A House That Has Everything from the film Clam Bake. And these were recorded by Elvis on February 21st, 1967. And we know from previous stories that Elvis flew on a Learjet to Nashville in order to record these songs. And then he flew back at the end of the day. And that jet was owned by the man who owned, or who started and owned, Holiday Inn, who was a neighbor of Elvis's, and also a friend of Sam Phillips, who is the man who recorded Elvis for the first time. And Sid Tepper wrote these words, which Elvis sang, and Elvis might have been thinking about, or these words might have resonated with him during this period. Better just a shack where two people care than a house that has everything, everything but love. And isn't that what Elvis was building here on the ranch? He wanted to build a mansion, but he couldn't do that. But still, better just a shack where two people care than a house that has everything, everything but love. And Elvis brought in a large number of trailers. 8 trailers, maybe 12 trailers altogether. And in each of those trailers, or in a lot of them, they were for a family, a couple that had children. A shack that had 2 people and had love. And because Elvis bought it, it had everything else and it was brand new. That was the beauty of the trailer. But these are the words that he was singing. And after he got done singing those words, he came back to the ranch and he got onto his horse, Rising Sun, and he rode and he rode and he rode till he got saddle sores. And he had to bring Dr. Nick into the story to treat him. And Lamar Fike, he continues the story of the trailers. You know, yesterday we heard how Marty, when Elvis told him he was pivoting from houses to trailers, where Marty had been very supportive of the houses, he began to put up roadblocks about the trailers, reminding Elvis that there would be a lot of difficulties. And when Elvis took the offer of the trailer to Jerry Schilling, and he said, Jerry, bought this trailer financing's a little tricky. You're going to pay for the actual monthly payments. But I've paid to have it all put here. I've got the down payment in, all of that. It's all set. You just have to take over the payments. And Jerry, he put up resistance and said he didn't want to take over the payments. Eventually he did. Others of the guys, according to Jerry, made the same agreement. George Klein said he had an apartment at home, or in the city, in Memphis. He didn't really need a trailer. He said Elvis was promising him a trailer, and he probably would have taken it when it showed up, but it wasn't there yet, and he was not asked to take on the burden of a monthly payment. Hi, Colleen. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And those monthly payments that Jerry saw as a burden, well, those may have been tests of loyalty. And all the guys who ended up in a trailer, well, they passed. But they may not have passed with the flying colors that Elvis had hoped for, because there was resistance. Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And Lamar says, and the neighbors raised Cain again and complained to the Hernando County Building Department that an unlicensed trailer park was going in. And that was hell again for a while, until Bernie got the temporary permits to hook up the trailers. Then Bernie's electricians and plumbers worked through the night. Now, who's Bernie? Well, who's Lamar? Lamar Fike is a friend of Elvis, joined him in 1957, knew him from slightly before, but joined full-time in 1957, went to Germany with him, tried to sign up for the army, but he was not in good enough physical shape for the army to take him. He wanted to serve with Elvis, so he went across the seas with Elvis and stayed in Elvis's home in Bad Nauheim in Germany and shared all of Elvis's German adventures, all of his European adventures. And he's pretty much been with him ever since. And he does, like Marty, he has a home in Memphis, so he's not part of the trailer deal. But he's there to see it all happen. And Bernie is Marty Lacker's brother-in-law. Marty Lacker is a friend of Elvis from high school. And Elvis brought him into the team in 1960. And he does a lot of bookkeeping. And he brings in people like Bernie, his brother-in-law. Bernie built the meditation garden. Bernie built the waterfall in the jungle room. Bernie's done a lot of stuff at Graceland and for Elvis. And of course, Bernie's an architect, so he has connections to people like the electricians and the plumbers, the ones who actually get the stuff done. Bernie plans it, and then he's able to coordinate and do all the logistics so that other people can finish it, get the job done. They can take care of business. And so every permit, every complaint, every workaround they have to do, it becomes part of this mythic struggle that Elvis is now involved in. Started with his dream of a mansion to replace Graceland on the grounds of the Circle G. That's been nixed. Bernie was involved in that too, drew up the plans, but it's not going to happen. Elvis had plans to put houses for all the guys around that mansion. It's not going to happen. That one fell through too. Elvis has pivoted. He's come up with another plan, like a general in the middle of a battle. Elvis isn't going to give up the dream. He's got to defer parts of it, but he's still going to get all the guys a place. And he's come up with this way to do it with the trailers and the financing, and using Bernie to get everything hooked up and to get all these permits that he didn't know were going to be an obstacle. But he's 100% in. He's not going to be stopped. He's going to go all the way to the end. And he's going to get these trailers put in. He's already given up the houses, but he's not going to give up the trailers. And Jen says this is the first time that she's ever heard about Bernie. Well, I'm glad I could bring him into your view of the Elvis myth, the Elvis legend. Bernie did a lot of stuff for Elvis. Like Marty, I believe he was Jewish. Marty was definitely Jewish, and I believe Bernie was as well. And so he's another one of the non-Christian friends that Elvis really likes. Also likes Bernie's wife, who I believe is Marty's sister. So they're personal friends of his. And I have talked about him in previous episodes. So if you missed those, be sure to watch those as well. 21 of these episodes out there about Circle G so far. I believe there's going to be at least 9 or 10 more. I have just a massive amount of information that I found. And I think you guys want to hear every bit of it. At least that's what I'm hoping. So there's going to be a lot more of these episodes because we're going to go from the trailers to the trucks and to the wedding is what's eventually going to happen. That's all central to the Circle G story. And Marty, Bernie's brother-in-law, Marty Lacker, the friend of Elvis, he says, we were refused permits for installation of electricity, septic tanks, and other utilities to the trailers. Bernie and his friend, the chief plumbing inspector, met with the city officials and convinced them that the ranch was not a trailer park. The permits were issued that night and the utilities were connected. Elvis spent $10,000 for phone communications to the house and trailers and about $140,000 for the trailer homes. So Marty is saying that his brother-in-law, architect, has those connections with the electricians and the plumbers. That's not the only connections he has. He has connections with the inspectors in the local area. And his friend is the chief plumbing inspector, who, of course, works for the city. And so they're able to meet with these city officials through that connection. And Bernie's able to explain, this is for Elvis Presley. People are not moving into this trailer park. You know, this is for the people that work for him. It's housing and temporary accommodations for his staff. And then the permits were issued that night. Now, $10,000 Elvis spent for communications for the phones. I believe that is what he paid to have the phone lines run from wherever the poles were in the public area. You know, there's telephone poles that run up and down the streets. So this was probably to connect to those phones, have somebody come out, and I'm assuming they buried the lines. I mean, burying the lines is something that seems more common today. Maybe they ran them overhead. I don't really know. But they hooked up from those lines, that's my guess, to the trailers in the house so that they could have multiple, I'm assuming there's multiple phone lines going on. Possibly a phone per trailer, a phone line. Not just a phone, but a different phone line. Don't know that, but $10,000 seems like a lot. Today's money, that's about $100,000. So I have to assume Elvis got some significant service for $100,000. And then the house and the trailers cost about $140,000 is what Marty's saying. That's about $1.4 million today, roughly. So he bought a lot of trailers. And Marty says Elvis was despondent over the neighbors' complaints. He asked his father, Red, Bernie, and me to come to his bedroom. We sat on the floor, and he was close to tears when he said, all I want in life is to give my friends the fun and luxury they've never had. Why do people want to stop me? It's a joy for me to see my friends happy. All I want is to see people happy, to be alive. So Elvis's dream wasn't just about himself. He's trying to make life better for his friends and his family. He's trying to share that all with them. And one person that he moved onto the ranch was Donna Presley. She was living with her father and her mother. She was age 17. And she tells wonderful, lovely stories about her time on the ranch. And I took some of her words, inspiration from those, and I wrote lyrics from them, and made this song. It's called He Gave Us Everything.
Oh, 17, snow on the ground, Circle G, love all around. He bought that ranch, opened the gate, said come on in, let's celebrate. Tractor pulling through the snow, laughter rising, spirits glow. Both behind, wives and men, family fun again and again. He wasn't just a star in lights, he was the warmth in winter nights. Kindness wrapped in velvet flame, a heart that never played the fame. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us wings. Circle G, where the angels sing. He gave us everything. Riding horses, legs so still, bridge and cross on the quiet hill. Barbecue smoke, stories told, moments more precious than gold. He asked me who I'm dating now, what I dream, what I'll allow. He cared like kin, not just a name. He lived for love, not for acclaim. He wasn't just a voice on stage, he was the soul behind the page. A man who'd sing to heal your day and laugh the midnight blues away. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us wings. Circle G, where the angels sing. He gave us everything. A shadow in the night, famous face, but heart so bright. Couldn't walk the street like you and me, so we built a world where we were free. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us wings. Gave us everything. Oh, yes, he gave us us everything.
Thank you for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echo. Today, we build our home on wheels here on the Circle G with Elvis, and we help him build his dream. We're going to look at some more things that people said. And Colleen says, Matt, with all your knowledge, you should write a book. I did write a book, Colleen, and it's out there right now on Amazon. It's kind of a thin book. It's about a single letter that the Colonel wrote to Elvis in 1960. And if you read it, it will give you a completely different look at the Colonel. It also tells you how Joe Esposito, Lamar Fike, and some other people that were with Elvis at the time, how they joined his group, including the Colonel's brother-in-law, Bitsy Mott. So it's a look at that letter, plus how all these people came to be in this spot at one time. You know, how they knew Elvis as of this moment in 1960 when they were with him. So you can find that out there. It's called Colonel and the Boys. There is a link for it in the description below this video. And Marion says she truly hopes Elvis can see how much joy he gave us. And Colleen says that it's almost 50 years later and he's still bringing us joy. And Linda's watching while she's on the treadmill, so she's getting some good exercise in. And on screen, the archive has brought us another image. And this is Elvis on the front cover of a magazine that came out, well, it's dated February 22nd, 1967. Probably came out slightly before that. The dates on these magazines are so that the news agent knows when to pull them from the shelf. So if it's March and he looks and sees this says February 22nd, he knows it's long past its time that it's supposed to be there. So when you see a magazine that's has no specific date, it just says like March 1967, they're going to leave it on the stands through March 1967, then they're going to pull it at the end of the month. And it probably went on sale early February, set third week of February, something like that. So this particular magazine is Everybody's magazine, which is an Australian magazine. And so if we've got anybody here from Australia right now, maybe they can tell us 15C, or it says 1/6, which I know is the price. And I think it's trying to tell us it's like, I'm going to say a farthing, but I don't really even know what that is. So I have no idea. It's some portion of a pound, a sixth of a pound, maybe. 15C, maybe that's what they call 15P. I don't know. So if you guys know what that means, let me know, because I'd be interested in that. And it says on this magazine cover that there are articles inside, 2 fascinating reports: Elvis Presley's future and Hollywood and sex. So I don't think that there is an article in here about Hollywood and sex and Elvis. That's a separate article, but they've put it out here on the front to make it kind of look like maybe it attaches to Elvis. And I believe Elvis Presley's future is an article where they're guessing what's going to be happening in the near future to Elvis. Like there are rumors that he might be getting married. Or they may know by now. I don't know. I don't have access to this article, but the picture of Elvis on the front, I think, is amazing. And he's wearing a gray suit. I think he's wearing a gray sweater with it. I don't think that's a vest. It looks kind of like it could be a vest. So it might be a three-piece suit. But I think that's a sweater over a white shirt that has a very large white collar. And it looks like he might be wearing a tie, but I think it's an ascot. Tied like a tie. Not really sure. It's not falling down like a tie. It's all up in the collar like a bow tie, but it's definitely not a bow tie. So any of you that know about fashion, maybe you can let us in on what Elvis is doing right here. But it's just he looks really good in this picture, right? And Linda is saying, did I miss the name of Matt's book? It's called Colonel and the Boys. And if you go down below the video into the description, I do have a link for it. Now, it's a full price book at $9.99. It's only about 50 pages long. It's an intense look at one letter. Some people have been put off that it's so short. I needed to write a book that I could push through the publishing process to prove that I could actually make this happen. That's what this book is. I believe it has intense value because I also invented a font that mimics Elvis's handwriting. And I took real quotes from Elvis, notes that he actually wrote in the margins of books. And I put those notes in the margins of this book in places where it was appropriate, as if he was commenting on the text. So he did not read my book and he did not comment on my book, but the notes that I have put in there that look like they're written by him, those are his real notes. He really did write those things in different books. So, like with my videos and the live streams and the shorts and the music, I've tried to pack in different layers of meaning so that even though it's short, it has a lot of value. And Linda's saying that 50 pages is good because she has too many that she hasn't read. Yeah, and I don't do a whole lot of commentary, at least not within that book. And I'm doing more commentary on these live streams than I've ever really done because I'm really into the facts. You know, I want to bring you the source material and the facts. But what I find is a lot of people don't have a grounding in the time period or some of the other pieces that were happening around Elvis. So that's what I'm trying to bring out within the live streams. And while we're on this short break about my book, let me go ahead and do one more plug. If everybody could give me a like that's watching this video, if you found value in it, you've heard something that you never heard before, give us a like, subscribe, make sure that you've hit that notification button, because that's going to give YouTube the best possible chance of telling you the next time that I'm on live. And I should be on live tomorrow at 3 p.m. That's the time I'm going on live right now. Every day, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So over in the UK, that's 8 p.m. If you're somewhere else and you're wondering, when is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? It's 24 hours from right now. Just join us back here 24 hours from now, and I'll be back on here talking about Elvis and sharing more information. And make sure that you tell everybody that you know that loves Elvis to join us here at Hillbilly Cat History. Those are the greatest and most useful things that you can do to support the channel right now. And Linda's saying that I've got the like, and she's got the paperback coming to me now. Thank you so much, Linda. I hope you enjoy it. And if you want to go back and leave me a great review, that would be fine too. But I think you really will be surprised at what the Colonel has to say in the letter. And it will give you a slightly different viewpoint of the Colonel. Although, like with all documents, there's multiple ways to interpret it. But it is a very surprising story. And back to this story, where we're still building the trailers on the Circle G. Gary Pepper was asked, did Elvis fall off a rising sun and break 3 ribs? So somewhere out there in the world, at this time, there's a rumor that Elvis broke 3 of his ribs while he was riding Rising Sun. So the world's aware that he's out there riding these horses, and they think he's hurting himself. And so I'm bringing up a slide that just kind of reiterates what we've just been through. Lamar Fike said, right after all that fell through, referring to the houses, Elvis got this idea that if I can't give him houses, I'll give him trailers. And that Elvis then purchased at least 8 high-end trailers at significant cost. He installed the concrete pads, the utility connections, the phone lines. Marty has told us the total investment, approximately $140,000 in 1967, which would be roughly $1.4 million today. And that the trailers were assigned to, some of them being paid for, so the deeds would be in their name. If you've ever heard Danny Smith or Billy Smith talking on his channel, Elvis Fans Matter, Billy and his wife, Jo, they do a show on YouTube, and they talk about a lot of their experiences with Elvis, including their time on the Circle G. And when Elvis passed away, they were living in a trailer on the Graceland property, and they moved out. And the place they moved to was the trailer that he had given them and was on the Circle G. The one that we heard yesterday looked like a cabin. And they were able to do that, Billy said, because the deed, the title, whatever the paperwork was in Billy's name because Elvis had transferred it to him, which was part of this deal. And so we can see that Elvis's long-term thinking, well, it really ended up paying off for Billy. What Elvis was trying to do for each of the guys worked out for Billy. And Billy might have been the most important one because he was kin. And Red West said we all got trailers in no time. He had bought 8 trailers at a tremendous cost, and they were all lined up in a row. And Gunn is saying that I'm talented and I'm a real Elvis friended fan. Thank you so much, Gunn. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that Gunn and Marion join us because I know that I don't know, but I believe that English is not their first language. And they're listening to me in my live stream language, which is not the most polished, and they're still finding value in the Elvis stories. And I just find that tremendous. So I really appreciate those of you who English is not your first language, but you are watching these live streams. I watched them on replay. It's really amazing. I never thought that would happen. And Linda's saying that the music is so good. I really appreciate that too, Linda. And Linda, there is a playlist when you hit that description below, and I mix rare Elvis tracks with my songs. So it's my song and then a rare Elvis track and then my song, then a rare Elvis track. So that you get a variety that's not just songs by me, but get some real Elvis in there. But they're probably either songs or takes that you haven't heard before, and you get a little bit of personal Elvis in there because he talks a little bit on some of them. And so you can reach that link just below in the description, below this video. And so Elvis, he's, shared with Marty and his father and the architect Bernie that all I want in life is to give my friends the fun and luxury they never had. Why do people want to stop me? It's a joy for me to see my friends happy. All I want is to see people happy to be alive. And then he moves forward and overcomes all of these zoning obstacles and these other issues. And he gets everything, all the utilities hooked up at the trailers. They're livable. People are now in them. His friends and their families are enjoying these trailers. And the way that Albert Goldman described that is Elvis waved a magic wand. Well, when you're outside the fence, the 10-foot high fence of the Circle G, and you're trying to see in, I bet it really does look like a magic wand. But if you're inside, or you're in Elvis's bedroom back at Graceland while he sits on the floor, and he cries as he says this, or he's close to tears, as Marty Lacker recalls, then you know there's no magic wand. Hi, Ebrew. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. It's your first time here. Well, welcome. I hope you get to come a lot more. And Gunn says that he's trying to understand, and he hopes that I could understand him. And he's a bit afraid that he sometimes doesn't understand me. So Gunn, yesterday, I advised Marion, who also is trying to understand what I'm saying in a different language, that roughly 24 hours, usually 24 hours, sometimes 2 days, after I post this live stream, after it goes into replay, YouTube automatically creates a transcription, and then they put a subtitling at the bottom. So if you watch any video that's more than 24 hours old, you should be able to hit the 2C's button, the subtitle button, and you'll get the auto-translated subtitles. Not the greatest subtitles in the world, but that may help you out. You can also go into the description, and you can click on the transcript button, and where we normally have the chat, you'll see the transcript. Now, it'll be in English, but I think you can tell it to auto-translate right there, or you can copy like a portion of it and then put it into a translator or an AI. That's a lot of work. So I wouldn't really want you to have to go do all that. But if there's something you just really wanted to know, and your other option's always just to put a comment below the video, and I will do my best to answer. And hopefully any of those of you who don't understand what I've said, because we've got a translation barrier, we'll try to get that cleared up so that you guys know the real information. And Gunn says, I'm a she-mat. Thank you very much for telling me that. I've always wondered. I really appreciate that. And so now we're back to where Gary Pepper is being asked a question. And he says, they're asking him, did Elvis break 3 ribs when he fell off the Rising Sun? And Gary says, no, he did not. The rumor is false. The only thing that happened was Elvis and Red West were riding their horses, and Red's horse sort of bumped into Elvis's horse. But there was nothing to it. Only Elvis got a little mad at the horse momentarily. I believe that that is Gary telling the story of when Red ran into Elvis and separated some cartilage in his chest. So it wasn't that there was nothing to it, but he didn't break any ribs. But it's one of the driving reasons that we've heard that Elvis determined he needed to get the horses off of Graceland and onto a ranch like the Circle G so that they could have more room. They just run out of room to run these horses at the speeds that they wanted to run. You know, they wanted to gallop all the time, and there just wasn't enough room to do that at Graceland. But it is interesting to hear that the rumor got out into the public, and they believed he had broken ribs. And Gary himself, either he's not wanting to put out there that Elvis was injured, or he doesn't realize that Elvis was injured during that. And Becky Yancey says, a few fans asked whether it was true that Elvis's twin was buried at the Circle G. I have no idea how that rumor got started. So we've seen that there's a rumor based on a real event, but somehow fans have gotten it into their head that Elvis has bought this property, perhaps based on the fact there's a cross on it. So it seems to have a religious connection. And they've got it into their heads that Jesse Garon is buried on the Circle G. But we haven't seen anybody say that. We haven't even seen anybody hint at that. So that's a very odd rumor for Becky to have heard at the time. And Marion is saying that the subtitles do help a bit. Thank you so much, Marion. I'm glad to know that. And Linda is saying that she's happy to know that Gunn is a she as well, because, you know, when we have these names on here, it's always hard to tell. And Jules Human, which is the name Linda is using, she's letting us know that Jewel is a boy. I believe he's a parrot, right? And it's because it's very hard to see in the very small picture, but he seems to be a beautiful parakeet, maybe, because I think he's sitting on somebody's glasses and on their head, who's maybe Linda. So Linda, let us know. And Ebru is saying that she is a she as well. Thanks for letting us know that, Ebru. It's nice to get to know everybody in the chat. And I'm very happy that you all have made a community out of the chat, and that you're happy to see each other when we get in here and we have things to share. And Gunn says she's trying to hang in on these lives too. I appreciate that, Gunn. I know it's a struggle. And Ebru says that she loves seeing the old photos of the good old days from the 50s and the 60s era. And I like to show them so that we can get an idea of what it was like at the time. And there's a lot of details in these photos that I find are popping out for us that now have meaning, now that we understand the stories that are behind them. And Gunn saying that she's loved Elvis since she was a very little girl. And Linda says that Jewel is a green cheek condor, but he doesn't know that. Probably thinks he's a human. And that it is Linda's head, and that Jewel loves to perch on her glasses, which are her reading glasses. And Jen says, she tries not to miss my lives, but it's hard during the week. I understand, Jen. But I also appreciate everybody who watches on the replays. And even though you couldn't participate in the chat at the moment, if you have ever got any questions, just let me know. We'll see what we can do about getting it into the next video or answering in the comments. And Gunn saying that it's difficult when we're going back and forth between languages to find the right words quickly, which is very true. So if you guys ever are confused about anything, feel free to ask and we'll slow down and we'll go through it again. It's not an issue. And Marty Lacker, he says one reason that Elvis started gaining so much weight, and we know he was gaining weight because he's going to end up reporting to Clambake overweight. We've talked about that in some past episodes, but it's going to come up again as we go through this period in more detail. Marty says one reason he started gaining so much weight was because he was depressed about his career and depressed about his father killing his plans for the commune. He was depressed about not having a big house down there at the ranch. I think what Marty's telling us is that Elvis, he pivoted to this idea about the trailers. And even Marty's putting up roadblocks about the trailers. But Elvis isn't going to let this go. He got the trailers. He made that happen. But he couldn't make his house and the houses around it happen in the way that he saw it in his head, the way that he dreamed it. So his commune is still coming true, but he's had to compromise. And I think some of that compromise, at least in his own head, is attached to things in his external life, his professional life, where he's losing control. Like the new contract, where the colonel's taking 50% of all new business. Or at least of the business that Elvis doesn't directly generate himself. So it's confusing, it's complicated, but there's definitely a loss for potential profits that Elvis could have brought in. Now the colonel's saying that there's going to be more profits altogether because now he's more incentivized to go out there and make more of these deals. But Elvis's beloved Uncle Pat has also died unexpectedly, middle of January. Alan Fortis, his father, died slightly before. So with all the good things that happen for Elvis, there's also bad things that are happening, and they're weighing on him. And Marty believes that these two new issues, this loss of this dream, even though Elvis is still making it come true a different way, this is the major reason that Elvis is depressed. And this is what is leading to Elvis riding around with a loaf of bread in its plastic sleeve from the grocery store, just tying it to his saddle and pulling a piece out as he gets hungry, and not even coming back to eat, spending massive amounts of time out on the horse and developing those saddle sores. So on February 21st, Elvis gets on a Learjet and he flies to Nashville for a recording session. And he records in RCA Studio B, which is where he normally records when he's in Nashville. And he records 4 songs. One is The Girl I Never Loved, which is an interesting title for a guy who's about to get married. And we know Elvis proposed. Well, according to what we saw on Christmas Eve, other sources say the date's not that specific, but it happened sometime in December. What we can rest assured of is that by February 21st, Elvis had proposed, and all the plans were moving forward, and he was going to be marrying Priscilla. The second song he recorded was How Can You Lose What You Never Had? And in yesterday's episode, we heard a couple of lyrics from that. But I think they might have resonated with him because he's lost this dream of the house with the houses around it. He's replaced it with the trailer and the cottage. Cottage that's already there. So he's lost a dream because he's had to pivot away from it. But he never really had it. It was a dream. It hadn't actually come true. So how can you lose what you never had? So Colleen's saying the comment that's on the screen from Jerry, does anyone know what was wrong? Well, that's a very insightful question, Colleen, because that's what we're going to come back to talk about tomorrow. And what Colleen's referring to is the quote on screen that says from Jerry Schilling. It says, late one night, Sandy and I were in our trailer during a rainstorm. There was Elvis standing in the pouring rain, looking confused and disheveled, holding a loaf of bread, and he said, Jerry, I need you to come with me. Now, I'm placing this story around this time because of the loaf of bread. This loaf of bread thing, I think, is only during February and March of 1967. The reports from later in May are that Elvis was extremely happy and things were going wonderful. And by the time he reported for Stay Away Joe, or even, I think it's Speedway, in July with Nancy Sinatra, he's looking great. Slimmed down, not having any weight issues, looking great. This constant eating of the carbohydrates in the bread, though, I think that's connected to this clam bake movie. And so this story that Jerry's going to tell us comes from this time period. Now, it's going to be a rough story. I'm going to go ahead and warn you guys that all of you who love Elvis, this isn't going to be a story you're happy to hear. Because this is not Elvis at his best. Or at least Jerry does not present Elvis at his best. And I believe there are some mitigating points that we need to look at, starting with Jerry has a very specific point of view, and Jerry's not mentioning his own participation in some of the activities that he's going to talk about. And in a much later episode in this series, because like I'm saying, we've got at least 7, 8, 9 more episodes to go. It's this particular type of story is going to reoccur. So there are still struggles that Elvis is having, and they're going to be around prescription drugs. And if you followed the series that I'm doing on the mystery of August 16th, 1977, we've seen some drugs that Elvis was taking towards the end. And we've seen that almost all of them, or if not all of them, are directly connected to medical issues that he absolutely has. And so the question isn't about whether he needed the drug. The question is, was he abusing the drug? Or could someone with those issues even abuse a drug like that? So that's some of that. This is a much earlier period. This is 10 years before. But it's a period where Elvis is developing, according to medical science now. They're tracing his megacolon back to 1965, saying it was between 10 and 12 years before that it started. So 67 is 10 years before. So if he had not developed a megacolon by now, the beginnings of one, it was developing right now. And he was moving from a point where if he was abusing drugs for pleasure, he's moving into he needs these drugs to control pain and to be able to perform and to be able to make the schedule that he needs to make in order to, for all of this money to continue to roll in, which, as you've seen from his quotes in this episode, are about keeping his friends happy. He wants to see his friends and his family happy. So, as we move through the rest of this story, I just want you guys to be prepared that we're not going to shrink away from any of it, because I don't believe that helps us to ignore any of it. These people said these things. I want to grapple with them and see how, if we interpret this through what we know from what others have said and what we know from the medical community, and from what these people are not saying, you know, how this all fits together and get the real picture. We know Elvis was suffering mentally through this period. That's why he's riding around with a loaf of bread. He's trying to reassert his control over his life. He's doing a complete, total reset here. It's such a reset, he almost gives up Graceland and moves everything here. But he has to stop. He can't do that, and he has to build the trailers. So that's what we're coming back to. And Colleen's asking, was this after his concussion? We have not reached the concussion yet. Colleen, you're ahead of me again. That's another great point. That is going to come into this story. And we're going to look closely at that. And that's why this has got to be so many more episodes, because the concussion itself, that's a whole episode story, right? If not 2 or 3. A lot of different viewpoints about the concussion. And I think that particular concussion story gets combined with another story from a much later period about a time that Elvis got his head dunked by Dr. Nick into a bucket of water. I think those two stories get conflated. And so this is a much earlier story, but it's going to have significant impacts on the group and on Elvis. And Gunn says that she's looking forward till tomorrow and listening to Jerry, and that Elvis did look really good on Speedway. And Jen's saying that even if she misses the live, she's going to hit the replay. Thank you so much, Jen. That's what I love to hear. And Gunn is saying that Elvis and Nancy look good in Speedway. And we're going to hear some interesting Speedway stories, too, because that's also part of the Circle G. Elvis is carrying the Circle G with him to these different places that he's going during this period. And it's with him until he decides to give it up. But we've also seen that he had that special ring made that looked like the rising sun, his horse. And so that he could wear the Circle G everywhere, even though he wasn't going to it anymore, even though he parted from it. And that'll be in the following year. And Ebru is saying that constant constipation causes enlarged colon and lengthens it. And prescription meds are notorious for constipating someone. I think that all plays into this, absolutely. I think that with the extreme case that Elvis had, I think there's got to be some genetics involved as well. And maybe some other environmental factors. And I do think that he had constant, or maybe not constant, but constipation problems throughout his life. And I think that constipation wasn't something that they looked at back then as being extremely serious. You know, middle-aged men got constipated, and that's why they had laxatives on the store shelves that you could purchase without a prescription. Common issue among older humans. So I think that when Elvis complained about this, it wasn't something that set any radar off on anybody. Now, if you went in today and said things like this, they'd start testing you for blood counts to see if maybe you had cancer, because maybe you were bleeding internally inside. They have different imaging things they would send you through. They would probably do a colonoscopy. They weren't doing any of that back then. They didn't have those capabilities. So you would have just been another middle-aged man complaining you're constipated. And Marion says that everything we know about Elvis helps to complete the whole puzzle. Can't wait to learn more. Gunn says that she can't remember any movie that Elvis didn't look fantastic in. And Ebrew says that it also causes bloating, which makes one look like they gained weight. Absolutely. Constipation and the megacolon. His other issue, though, was that he had an enlarged heart from bad blood flow, and that had caused an enlarged liver, and now he had no space inside his abdomen, and then he would overeat and it would swell. And so he was taking a lot of medications to control the pain. Like your liver doesn't have any nerves that cause pain, but there's a coating, like a membrane that runs all the way around the liver, and apparently it's one of the most painful pieces of your body. So when this swells, it causes massive pain. And Elvis definitely did have an enlarged liver and an enlarged heart. And Linda's saying that she knows that Elvis took opioids towards the end of his life, but she didn't know they started this early. Well, at this point, I don't know that he was taking opioids. It's more amphetamines and barbiturates, which are downers, so uppers and downers. And it's grown out of a habit that is completely legal. There was a long time you just buy this stuff at the gas station, both kinds, like because people needed to sleep and people needed to wake up, so they would have both kinds available at a regular pharmacy out on the shelf, and then it became more controlled. So I think what we see is the growth of legitimate use. But I think that anybody will tell you that that on any medication, whether it's an opioid or not, it becomes rather easy to begin to overuse them, especially if you're not accountable to anybody for the number that you're using. When you have a prescription, you're accountable to the doctor. Doc, I used all my prescription. And then the doctor could say, well, I gave you one per day. You'd say, well, I'm taking more than one per day. Then you could have a discussion with the doctor about what you're supposed to be doing, and if you're taking too many, and if you've moved into abuse. And then if you've got to have a new game plan. But Elvis he knew what worked for him because he used it when it was legal, totally legal, and didn't require a prescription. And Gunn is saying that Nancy Sinatra once said that the Speedway was the best time of her life. And she said in an interview. And that's interesting because I think she had broken up with her husband. And suddenly his name is escaping me, but he actually was connected to the Colonel. And he was the first person to play Elvis in a movie, although that character was not named Elvis. It's a TV movie. And I've got a special episode about it on the channel. So you can go find that. And it's got a link to the movie, if you want to watch it, the TV movie, that Nancy Sinatra's former husband was in. And he looked a lot like Elvis. And he was even a singing star for a short period. And so there's some speculation that she married him because he was very Elvis-like. And that's really the end of our episode for today. So we are going to come back and we're going to talk about this Jerry Schilling story. But like I've been doing, I'm going to go ahead and send you guys out of here. on a song, and this one is about the cross that started it all. This is Cross on the Circle.
He saw the cross at dawn and said, "It's a good omen."
You all keep taking care of business.
At the break of dawn, through the window pane, he saw a cross in morning rain, white as grace, tall as prayer, calling him to build and share. Not a kingdom, not a throne, but a place of love alone, where laughter rides on horse's breath and peace outshines the fear of death. Come home to the circle and the sign, where the lake reflects the holy line. No one needs money, no one needs fame, just a handshake and a name. Come home where the cross stands tall. Come and share the love of all. Mobile homes and barbecue nights, trucks and trout and porch light rides. He handpicked hard to share the dream, a mythic village by the stream. This is more than land, it's grace, refuge carved in sacred space, a gift of love to friends and kin, protected from the world's loud din. Come home to the circle and the sign, where the lake reflects the holy line. No one needs money, no one needs fame, just a handshake and a name. Come home, come home, where the cross stands tall. Come and share the love of all. Oh, come and share